This is Wycombe Sound.
Hello everyone, Dane here, and you're listening to The Art Show on 106.6 FM Wycombe Sound. My name's Dane Cobain, I will be your host for the next hour. In this show we're all about the local art scene, including local music, so there's going to be plenty of that coming. I'm also going to be joined on the show today by Dave Ford, aka Twangling Jack Ford, which is his sort of open mic persona. I've known Dave for quite a while now. We met at the Wycombe Arts Centre, where we've both been volunteers. He takes out the bins. I work behind the bar sometimes. Obviously, it's not running at the moment, unfortunately. And Dave and I, we play in a duo called the Ilk. We'll talk a little bit more about that, including how the band got its name, and play a few of our tunes as well. Dave's had a pretty crazy life. He used to be a cab driver in London. There are rumours that he may have been part of the inspiration for a Will Self novel, so we'll talk about that. He's written a musical. He's written the song Sweet Home High Wycombe, which has about 60,000 hits on YouTube. I believe there's even a drinking game about it as well. So yeah, we'll be catching up with Dave a little bit later on in the show. As always, you can find The Art Show on Facebook. Just search for The Art Show Wycombe Sound, it should come up. You can also feel free to drop me an email on dane.cobain@wycombesound.org. That's dane.cobain@wycombesound.org. And I particularly want to hear from you if you're in the local art scene. Perhaps you've got some sort of event going on. Obviously, they're all online at the moment, but still there's a lot of people doing streams and that sort of thing. Perhaps you make, arts and crafts and you've got an Etsy store or something like that. I want to support the art scene here in Wycombe as much as I can. I'm particularly looking for local musicians as well. So, yes, get in touch, please. Last week's show was the first ever instalment of The Art Show, and I just wanted to take a second to thank everybody as well who's provided their feedback. It's been pretty much overwhelmingly positive. Even Pippa here at the radio station, she was very kind and said it was just what is needed in these times, which, art gets you through tough times. There's a meme going around on Facebook at the moment where it's kind of saying, just remember, once we get on the other side of this, that it was art that you turned to when, time was the toughest. And in fact, I'll be sharing later on in the show a couple of suggestions of sort of artsy things to check out. Each week we have a book of the week, a Netflix show of the week, and an album of the week. It's quite cool. I've actually learned a lot from making that first show, so hopefully this show will be even better. We will see. Sorry, I'm getting super distracted because I'm recording at home and my cat's running past, but the show must go on. Speaking of cats, I was having this interesting debate with a few friends the other day about whether books and cats go together. It seems to me as though a lot of my bookish friends also own cats. I participate in a community called BookTube. It's basically a bunch of people talking about books on videos and uploading it to BookTube, and we all watch each other's videos and follow each other's reviews and stuff. And we have these things which are called tags. People often do them on blogs. You've probably seen something similar on Facebook where you get a set of questions and you have to fill out your answers. But there's a books and cats tag going around which kind of taps into that symbiosis, I suppose. So I want to hear from you guys. You can email me on dane.cobain@wycombesound.org. I want to hear from you whether you have cats, whether you're artsy, whether the two of them go together or not. My cat does this thing where if I'm reading a book, he'll come and sit on it whenever I put the book down, and it gets really irritating because sometimes I'll put my book down to go and get a cup of tea and come back and the cat's on it, and the cat is in charge of the house. So if he's sitting on my book, I'm not allowed to pick it up, He likes to nuzzle against them as well. He actually does this thing. I tab out my books with these little sticky tabs so that when I'm doing reviews I can go back and revisit the bits that interested me the most. And yeah, my cat Biggie, he'll just walk up while I'm reading and start trying to bite the sticky tabs out of the ends of my books. I think he thinks he's being helpful, but he is not. Charles Bukowski, who's one of my favourite authors, he was basically an alcoholic, gambling, addicting womanizer, but he did like cats. He actually there's a collection out called On Cats, which brings together all of his different writing about cats. I feel like Stephen King might be more of a dog man though. I don't know. See, now that's got me thinking of fictional cats and dogs, and that kind of takes my mind to Terry Pratchett's Discworld series. It's kind of comic fantasy, because there are quite a few in that. There's a cat called Grebo, who belongs to one of the witches, and he's this really mean cat. I also quite like that because when I was growing up in the Midlands, Grebo was a term for somebody who had kind of long hair and was into rock and alternative music and stuff. I was a Grebo. There's also Gaspode the Wonder Dog, who is a dog who can talk in that. And Pratchett also wrote a book called The Amazing Morris and His Educated Rodents. Basically, in this fictitious universe, there's a university called the Unseen University, and that's where all the wizards go. It's like the Hogwarts of Discworld, you know? And basically, because there's so much magic concentrated into that area, it's leaked into things like the garbage, for example, that then, you know, the wild dogs in the city then eat. And of course, so do the rats and the mice and the cats. And so Morris is a talking cat, and his educated rodents, they can also talk. And they basically come up with this scam. So they go from city to city and pull this scam. And it's the Pied Piper of Hamelin, except they just get this dumb boy who kind of goes along with them. But the cat is the mastermind, and they pretend to chase out all of these educated rodents. It's great. You should check it out. That kind of also gives me a weird but maybe workable segue into the first song that I'm going to play, because it's got animals in it. So this is Snakes and Ladders by Tony Goff and the Broken Colours.
My life is like snakes and ladders. I'm on the top and then I stagger. Failing life, failing friends. This rate it won't be a good end now. It won't be a good end now. My life is like Pluto, just trying to find screw me. Go fish and see what you might find. Battleships, see if you survive. Survive. I close the door so some will open. I change the course as some are broken. Now I'm trying to find another way to reach that long-awaited day. My life is a charade, stuck in the mud and it's constant day. My life is like snakes and ladders. I'm on the top and then I stagger. Go fish, see what you might find. Battleships, see if you survive. Survive. Close the door so some will open. And change the course as some are broken. Trying to find another way to reach that long-awaited day. Long-awaited day. I close the door so some will open. I change the course as some are broken. Now trying to find another way to reach that long-awaited. I close the door so some will open. I change the course as some are broken. Now trying to find another way to reach that long-awaited day.
Love music. Love talk. Love Wycombe Sound.
Being a foster carer isn't just about providing vulnerable children a safe home. It's about loving, listening and guiding. It's about changing their lives. If there's space in your home and you have the time and patience, then Nexus Fostering wants to hear from you. We're your local fostering agency, rated outstanding by Ofsted, and we're here to support you in supporting them with full training and a competitive allowance. For a career that really makes a difference, visit nexusfostering.co.uk or call 0800 389 0143.
Hi, it's Pippa here. Join me every morning at 7 o'clock for the Wycombe Sound Breakfast Show, featuring all your usual favourites, including Carefree Karaoke, The Breakfast Banger, Chickadita's Choice, and, in an effort to keep your morning routine as normal as possible, Summer Breakfast. 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 Summer Breakf we'll be taking the register at 8:45. I'll name check all the people that have been in touch with me every morning. So why not tweet me, send me a message on Facebook, or email studio@wycombsound.org.uk. Don't be late now, and no skulking behind the bike sheds. That's the Wycombe Sound Breakfast Show every weekday morning from 7.
This is Wycombe Sound.
The
This is Wycombe Sound.
Alright, that was Where Are We Now by the Rock'n'Roll Morning Band, and before that we had Snakes and Ladders by Tony Goff and the Broken Colours. So the guy behind the Rock'n'Roll Morning Band is a guy called Steve Busby. He used to own a music shop as well. And this has just reminded me, I need to speak to him because he doesn't have his shop going anymore, but he still does stuff here and there, including setting up guitars. So there's this thing that guitarists talk about. They talk about the action of the guitar. And I have no idea what that means, but I'm pretty sure that Steve does. And so I need to give him my guitar at some point once we're allowed to go out and about again. Plus he'll clean it and give it a new set of strings. Anyway, it's that exciting time of the week where I get joined by this week's guest. I'm going to introduce him quickly and then we're going to listen to one of his songs and then we can get him on the phone for a little chat. So this week we are going to be chatting to Dave Ford, aka Twangling Jack Ford. He's a local musician, songwriter, he's written musicals, he's written a few books. He does a lot of different things basically. He also takes the bins out at the Arts Centre. In fact, it's through Wycombe Arts Centre that we know each other. Dave is big on going to open mics, so I'm sure he's going crazy at the moment with no events on. But that's really how I got to know him. I went down to the Wycombe Arts Centre open mic to do some spoken word poetry about 5 or 6 years ago now. Probably longer actually. And Dave is just... He's a character, you know. So anyway, I got chatting to Dave at this art centre and then sort of became friends over time, and now we play in a duo together called the Ilk, but we also go to a lot of open mics together and stuff. And again, we've both been volunteering at the art centre doing bits and bobs, although obviously that's all on hold at the moment. Obviously here at the Art Show, live and online at 106.6 FM and wycombesound.org, got to get that plug in, every Tuesday 7 till 8 PM. We like to support local artists wherever possible. And the song I'm about to play now is possibly the most local you can get, because long before it was ever a headline on the front cover of the Books Free Press, Dave wrote this song called Sweet Home High Wycombe. And it's been viewed about 60,000 times on YouTube now. And does a pretty good job of representing the town, I guess.
An escalator from the sky, Marlow Hill descends to the bridge on the River Wye. Walkers, talkers, bowlers, batters, bows and catchers on the line. And if to London I should roam, it's just a train from Marylebone. Within an hour I'll be home. Sweet home High Wycombe, the Pepper Pardon Mausoleum, Hellfire Caves and the museum, the venues where the song is played, the site where G-Plan once was made, a big chair for the furniture trade. Sweet home High Wycombe, where Hellfire Club played their degenerate games. Sweet home High Wycombe, where Howard Jones threw off his metal chains. Sweet home High Wycombe, we went out there every year. Sweet home High Wycombe, in the Chiltern Hills, the best town in Buckinghamshire, the best town in Buckinghamshire, the best town in Buckinghamshire.
So that was Sweet Home High Wycombe, and let's get the man, the myth, the legend on the show, Dave Ford. The first thing, I guess, is, do you want to introduce yourself and, touch upon a few of the things that you said you wanted to talk about today?
Dane has introduced me, or last week he introduced me, introduced me as Twangling Jack, which is a name I took from Taming of the Shrew, which was the lute player. It's part of a scene where they're establishing how much Katerina is a shrew, and the lute player comes running out and says, she called me rascal fiddler and Twangling Jack and 20 such vile terms. And I thought, well, that's got to be my name. So I suppose my biggest claim to fame is my song Sweet Home High Wycombe, which has had 70,000 hits on YouTube, and is I get recognised in the streets. I get people on tech outs telling me how much they like it, and apparently, according to your guest last week, the students at the uni had a drinking game they used to play to it. So
yeah, and also some of our Romanian friends, right, when they first moved to High Wycombe, that's all they'd seen.
Yes, they apparently they were coming to live in Wycombe, and they searched on Google High Wycombe, and they came up with quite a few things about terrorists and my video. And then I was performing at an open mic at Wycombe Arts Centre, and they saw me, and on the video I call myself the Wycombe Man. Yeah. And there's a video, a picture I did which was like a mock-up of the Wicker Man, and they said, oh look, there's the Wycombe Man.
You've lived a life for sure, haven't you? I mean, back in the day when you were part of like the punk scene, you've been a cab driver for a while.
Oh yeah, I was for some reason doing the during this self-isolation, I seem to be spending a lot of time washing up.
Right.
And there was a time when I was sort of on the Harrow music scene where you hadn't paid your dues until you'd been a kitchen porter. Right. And I remember I used to meet all the other musicians at all the local places. We were either in warehouses or washing dishes up. That was in the post-punk days. That's the bit you don't see.
So let's talk about your hypertext novel. So can you tell us what a hypertext novel is and how it came about?
Well, what happened was, as I was a minicab driver, I would get lots of people would tell me things. They'd tell me stories. And then I would tell other people stories about my time playing, and I was writing a musical at the time and all kinds of things. And so people would say, you should write a book. So I wrote, the first thing I wrote, it was called Zen and the Art of Minicabbing, which was a strange comedy philosophy on what I'd learned from minicabbing. And then I incorporated lots of other stories of when I was younger. And going back to Shakespeare, because I am so pretentious, I took the 7 ages of man. So I started with stories of me when I was a mewling, puking infant, and then when I was playing in a band, and when I was a bank clerk. And the premise of it was that it's this thing where Jimi Hendrix lived next door to Handel. So it was based on location. So at any point, there would be 2, maybe 3 stories happening of the young me would be at that point and the older me would be at that point. And so an example is the old Staples Corner. The baby me was on the North Circular, and the guy who was working in a warehouse was travelling over on the flyover, which hadn't been built when the baby me was there, and so that kind of thing. And there's this game that I had somebody who tried to get this published. It was a series of stories. It was called Breakfast at Tesco, which back in the day, writing at tes.co.uk. And it was the story that started it was how I was arrested by the police and locked up for something I didn't do. And when they finally let me out, I was a bit miffed that they took me to the police station, but they made me walk out when it turned out I wasn't guilty. And I went and had breakfast at Tesco. So I don't know. So anyway, I had a friend of mine who was he was the guy that made the Alien film that fooled the world.
Right, yeah, the Alien Autopsy. Yeah.
Yes, he was. So he I gave him this to read because he was in it.
Yeah.
there was a story about how we were employed. He had the studio, and we were given the job of writing a song to help the victims of a Mexican earthquake. And it turned out that the guy running it was a fraudster. My friend had to go to Gatwick to pick up these bricks, special bricks that had been made in order to rebuild Mexico. However, when he got there, the police had smashed them up in case they had drugs in them.
Right.
And so each of my chapters had titles, and the title of that chapter was A Van Full of Dust.
Right, yeah.
Obviously. So anyway, he was interested in this, but it didn't happen. So then when I sort of started making web pages, I realised the way to do this would be to do it as a hypertext novel. So you start at a certain point. It starts in Northolt, and you can choose whether you go up the North Circular, down the North Circular. And every time you get to a certain place, there will be 2 or 3 choices, and each one leads to a different story of something that either happened to me or other people. It's like there's a scene where my band, I think we were in Frith Street, and this genuinely happened. We had a flat tire and the drummer got out, and he came back in and said, "Well, it's good news, it's only flat at the bottom." And that occurs at the same, just up the road from where Karl Marx was getting into trouble because he'd made his maid pregnant. And so this is like, and so the only way I could really tell this story was to do it this hypertext format. Yeah. And there were people who'd read it. You read it, it was a different story every time you read it.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, that's true. I mean, it's a bit like how choose your own adventure books work, I suppose.
Yeah, yeah.
And so, okay, so let's go back to Zen and the Art of Minicabbing, because I want to talk about the possibility that Will Self might have heard about you and might have... So there's a book called The Book of Dave, which I studied at university, and it's written by Will Self, and it's about this London taxi driver who distills his wisdom into a book for his son, and then that gets buried for thousands of years, and then in the future there's like a whole religion about it. And people you worked with at your taxi firm used to drive him around, right?
Well, no, I don't know. I know that he was, he frequented the area of North London that I worked for a cab company. Yeah. But it was a kind of Chinese whispers kind of thing. I would hear this story that there was a guy writing a book who was one of the drivers at the company I worked for, and it turned out it was me. Because that was it just spread round. So it was, it could have been me. It just seemed because it's the guy's called Dave, and he's a cab driver, and he's in an area that Will Self frequented. And if he had picked up a driver, somebody from our company who knew that he was a writer, they might well have mentioned it.
Yeah. You're listening to The Art Show on 106.6 FM Wycombe Sound. My name's Dane Cobain, and I'm interviewing Dave Ford, aka Twangling Jack Ford. And let's listen to another one of his songs. So this song's called Freak Show, and fun fact, I have the chords and the lyrics printed out to this and attached to my wall because I'm supposed to be learning to play it. Still haven't done it yet.
The only thing we have to fear is fear itself.
You wonder why I hide when I'm feeling low. You wonder why I live my life like a one-man freak show. If I do my bone, can I join your team? I could make you laugh so you won't treat me mean. I was always the sort to avoid sport, given any excuse. Always feeling out of place with the constant verbal abuse. You wonder why I am so hard to know. You wonder why I live my life like a one-man freak show. I could play guitar, I could buy a van, to know. You wonder why I let it die when you wanted it to grow. You wonder why I live my life like a one-man freak show.
This is Wycombe Sound.
Welcome back to the Art Show on Wycombe Sound 106.6 FM. I'm your host, Dane Cobain, and we've just listened to Freak Show by Twangling Jack Ford, and let's continue to chat about music, musicals and more.
You mentioned Shakespeare, and I know you have... do you want to quote us some of your lines from your song about Hamlet? What's it called? Scandinavian Rhapsody?
Well, I would recommend people look at it on YouTube. But, okay, well, some lines. It goes, my father is dead, may he rest in peace. My uncle is marrying my mother, and there's something rotten going on round here, what with one thing and another. Because I thought it should have a bit of Chaz and Dave in it. And then the second line, my uncle, I fear, put poison in father's ear. The truth is mine to uncover. And there's something rotten going on round here, what with one thing and another. Then it goes, alas, poor Yorick, a man I once knew, of infinite jest, just like me and you, Horatio. In heaven and on earth, there is more than is plain. There's more than your philosophy can explain, Horatio. And then it flips to the bit with Ophelia. It goes, oh, woman, you lisp and amble, boasting of how little you know, always changing the face you have been given. We'll go to a nunnery, go, go, go. And that's bits a bit rocky there on the go to a nunnery, go, go, go. Then it concludes with, well, I drove Ophelia mad and I killed her dad. Now I've got to fight a duel with her brother. And if his blade doesn't kill me, the poison will, what with one thing and another. And the final line is, and I'm actually really quite proud of this, when all's been done and all's been said, even Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are dead. Ba-boom.
Hooray! Awesome. And so, and it's not just Shakespeare as well, because I know you've been inspired by George Eliot. So, do you want to tell us about that?
Yes. Yes. A friend of mine. Because I decided to stop playing a rock band, and I wanted to move on. And I met somebody with two other people, and we decided we wanted to write a musical, and we wrote a musical that was it was workshopped by the Theatre Royal Stratford East, but it was a modern musical, and they said, well, you should do something a bit more period. And my friend said, let's do Silas Marner by George Eliot. And so we wrote a whole load of songs, and we had at one point we had the Shaftesbury Theatre interested in putting it on. And then we staged it ourselves in a theatre in Camden, and then we had more people said that they wanted to do it, and then I put that on the internet, and a company in Surrey did it a few years ago, and I tried workshopping it at the art centre myself, and then recently my friend has put a lot of money into recording a professional version of it.
Yeah, and I mean, that's not the only musical you've worked on either. I mean, you know, Goff springs to mind, for example. Yes,
that's a strange one, isn't it? Seeing as you were involved in that, and with I decided, well, after the people who decided not to do Silas Marner, this is after somebody had flown to New York to talk to Jim Dale about him being in it. They then advised us that it was probably better not to do a period musical, and we should do something more modern. And so, looking for a story that was in the public domain, I thought of the book Trilby by George du Maurier, which is famous for the character Svengali. And so we wrote basically a musical based on Svengali. And then I met somebody at an open mic night who really liked the whole thing, and she is now trying to get a production of that. She's looking for crowdfunding. obviously the virus is holding it up, but she runs a big advertising agency, and so we're quite hopeful about that.
What is the Ilk, Dave? And what's the what's the radio-friendly version of where the name comes from?
Yes, right. The Ilk. This is Amanda, who I live with. She used to ask me for lifts. We both used to start work quite early, but I used to give her a lift. It made me maybe a little bit earlier than I would have done. And on one occasion, she said the reason why I should give her a lift is because there were muggers and the Ilk walking around the streets. And I said, what a great name for a band. And of course, at that time in the morning, that kind of comment can be quite annoying. so when my intention then was to use it as part of my Twangling Jack thing, and it'd be Twangling Jack and the Ilk, so I just wouldn't have a band, it'd just be people like me.
Yeah.
And then when we got together, it became, we are the Ilk, and it sort of suits because we tend to sort of pick up people like us.
Yeah. No, for sure. I think
we are the Ilk and the Ilk.
Yeah, I think people have taken to it for that reason. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what I want to know is, what have you been like? How have you been keeping yourself busy in lockdown? I imagine you've been spending some time in the Ilk shed. So let us know.
Yes.
Describe your shed for us, and
right,
let us know what you've been working on.
Anybody familiar with the buildings that were built around the turn of last century in the Desborough area will know that at the bottom of the gardens there are brick outhouses which were the toilet block, probably the coal cellar, etc. My one is relatively intact, so I've sort of turned it into a bit of a studio, in as much as a brick outhouse at the bottom of the garden that used to be a toilet can be a studio. And what I've been doing while we've been out isolating is there's a Facebook page called Open Mixolate, and everybody I know, it seems, are posting clips of them playing, and so I wanted to sort of clear my backlog. I want to move on, get to the point where I'm writing new songs, looking at new projects. So I thought I would clear my backlog by just playing all the songs I've been doing, and sort of like just representing my repertoire as it was before we went into lockdown. Mm-hmm. And so that's it. I've been, instead of going out to an open bike night, I've actually been getting dressed up and putting the lights on and, actually filming myself as I would perform these songs in pubs. And I've now, the way some people have been stockpiling toilet paper, I've stockpiled songs.
Yeah.
And I'm not putting more than one or two up a day, so I've got a few weeks worth. And now that I'm pretty much finished out, I can start thinking where I'm going to go, because I want to be more of a musician. I'm not really a singer. And recently with the Ilk thing is I've been playing more lead guitar and I want to play more piano. Mm-hmm. And I want to get better at those. So
cool. And where can people find you to find out more?
Okay, I'm all over the place.
In more ways than one.
I've got a YouTube channel called Twangling Jack, or Twangling Jack Ford. I've got the Dave Ford YouTube channel. On Facebook, I have my own page, David Ford, and Twangling Jack, and there is a channel called Chevrons with a Z, which is where you will find the original Sweet Home High Wycombe video, although I have redone it, and that's probably on Twangling Jack. There's actually a whole channel which is the original version of Silas Marner, and that's called Hit Musical. So if you can find that on YouTube, that's the Camden production of Silas Marner from 2000. Yes, and I mean, the thing I'm working on, obviously I want to carry on with the band, but I'm working on my solo show, which I'm calling the One Man Freak Show. Sweet. And One Man Freak Show. It's this, you know, to a certain extent, the whole reason I've done any of this is because I was fat. Well, I am fat, and you know, when you develop strategies to not be bullied. Mm-hmm. And so at school you have to become the comedian, and then you think, oh well, I need to be a singer and I have to write songs and blah blah blah. And it's just looking at the, you know, had I not been a fat child, I might just be a bank clerk now.
Yeah, that's true.
And that's been and so you also get to the point where you think, well, if they're going to make fun of me, I might as well really give them something to make fun of. And then I have become the act. You know, this is so. Yeah, so the whole Twangling Jack thing is quite eccentric. It's like me on a very eccentric day.
All right, thank you, Twangling Jack Ford, for joining us. And this is a song by the Ilk, the band that the two of us are in together. This is Break Your Heart, which is a song that Dave wrote when he was, I think, 17, and we're still playing it today, 40-odd, 50-odd years later. Not quite 50 years later. Sorry, Dave, you're not that old.
Love music, love talk, love Wycombe Sound.
Did you know there's a new council coming for Buckinghamshire? From the 1st of April, the new Buckinghamshire Council will replace the existing county and district councils. Don't worry, your bins will still be collected. We'll continue to run libraries, maintain the roads, look after vulnerable adults and children, and there'll be all the day-to-day services you are used to. One council will make it simpler for you. We will be able to improve services together and give you better value for money. Buckinghamshire Council. Your Buckinghamshire, your council. A better future together.
We understand that everyday life is going to become challenging over the next few weeks and months, but we want to reassure you that the Wycombe Sound team are here to inspire and entertain you with local, relevant programmes and information.
We followed government advice and set our team up to work remotely. We have taken all the steps we can to keep our team safe so we can be here for you.
Local businesses. Perhaps you have closed temporarily or have found a new and innovative way of working. If you want to reach customers with your message, get in touch with us today.
We can get through this if we all pull together. Please stay at home, stay tuned to Wycombe Sound for the latest information, and do get in touch with us to let us know how you're doing, if you'd like a song played, or just want us to say hello to you.
This is Wycombe Sound.
Alright, that was the Ilk with Break Your Heart. We're now at the point of the show where we recommend things to help keep you sane during lockdown. So each week we're recommending a book, an album, and a movie or TV show. So I'm going to start with a movie or TV show, and that's going to be a show called Intervention, which is on Netflix. So basically what happens here is they follow people with addictions. It's kind of like a reality TV show style thing. And they kind of document the addictions and the effects that it's having. And then towards the end of the show, they stage an intervention with the family and then the host, who is like a professional interventionist. So the first one, it followed this lady she'd been married to a millionaire and was living the high life. And then she'd kind of fallen on hard times. And eventually she'd become an alcoholic. And it showed the effect this was having on her family. And honestly, the word for it is harrowing. It was difficult to watch. And I watched this first episode and kind of worried. I was concerned that maybe this show was going to just be sort of pretty much taking advantage of people who are really low ebb. And I don't know, I guess there is still an element of that. There's a discussion to be had around that. It's the same as whether it's morally right to enjoy watching true crime when it's talking about real murder victims. But the second show in this series, Intervention, it was about this woman who basically she was no longer able to swallow, so she'd even spit out into cups. She would chew food, but then she'd spit that out again into a cup. She liked to get the taste of it, but in terms of actually eating, she basically was like injecting pureed food into her stomach. And yes, there was like a pretty deep-seated psychological reason for why she was doing this as well. So again, it was really harrowing, but it was interesting to watch and to learn about the different forms that addiction can take. And yeah, I mean, I think it did provide viewers as well with, you know, a few tools that they can use if they're worried about someone in their lives. So I guess overall a net positive there. So for this week's album, I actually don't know why I made this a part of the show, because I don't really listen to albums, you know. I'm a millennial, so everything's on streaming sites and I just listen to individual songs that I like. However, I was having a little think about it, and I want to give a little shout out to the album In the Aeroplane Over the Sea by Neutral Milk Hotel. So they're sort of, I guess you'd call them like a lo-fi-ish alternative folk band. They actually had this one album years ago and then disbanded and kind of became a cult band because of it. They have since reformed and played a few shows here and there. But In the Aeroplane Over the Sea is basically a concept album about Anne Frank. And if that doesn't sell you on it, I don't know what else will. And for the book, I'm going to recommend The Ardlamont Mystery, the real-life story behind the creation of Sherlock Holmes by Daniel Smith. This is actually one that I was sent a couple of years ago. I run a book blog, and so every now and then publishers will send me books. And yeah, as I say, I got sent this a couple of years ago and never got round to it. Until the other day, I picked it up and read it in a couple of days or so. And it's a non-fiction book, and basically it follows this Ardlamont trial. It was a kind of landmark Scottish legal trial. Basically, these three gentlemen went out hunting, and one of them died. He was shot, and the question was whether it was murder or whether an accidental death. And so this book follows the trial, but then some of the key participants in the trial are these two guys who were both kind of inspirations for Sir Arthur Conan Doyle with the creation of Sherlock Holmes. There's even a guy in it called Dr. Watson, who is said to be the inspiration behind Watson as well, because, you know, he fought in wars and there are various sort of similarities drawn. And that's kind of what makes this book cool, is you could read it just as a true crime read, just reading about this one legal case, or you can read it as a Sherlock Holmes fan and see how, you know, the figures behind the trial inspired Sir Arthur Conan Doyle to create Holmes. I'm a bit of a true crime fan and a Sherlock Holmes fan, and so there were the two elements there for me to enjoy. And overall, I've just not really read anything like it. Definitely not this year, and probably not for a good few years, you know? So definitely recommend that one. Anyway, we're pretty much at the end of the show now, so I want to say a big thanks again to Twangling Jack Ford for coming on to chat to me. We'll be back again next week. We're on every Tuesday, 7 till 8 p.m, Wycombe Sound 106.6 FM, online at wycombesound.org. You can contact me on dane.cobain@wycombesound.org as well if you want to, I don't know, receive a shout out if you're a local artist. If you've got any music as well, if you're a local musician or in a band, please reach out to me. We've also got a Facebook page, so if you just search for The Art Show Wycombe Sound on Facebook, you should be able to find us. Next week, we're going to be joined by Matt Sears, who is a filmmaker. I actually used to work with him when we were working for a marketing agency back in the day. And he's released a range of short movies. He's done everything from like travel vlogs to some award-winning short horror movies. And he has a new movie out right now. It's a post-apocalyptic thing called The Sky, which is perfectly suited for our day and age, really. Matt lives in Marlow as well. He was going to come into the studio, but we can't do that, so he's going to jump on the phone with me instead. I'm going to leave you with this one last track by a local band called Neon. It's very appropriately titled. It's called Radio. See you next week.
Locking horns, assassin and face it all. I stay for now. Litter it up. Litter the page that I see fading on. But can you now?
This is Wycombe Sound.